All right, here we are, Dean Arnold's podcast, Dean's Daily Podcast. That was a new intro that I just was flirting with, just to have a little bit of fun. And comments and questions welcome as always. And if you got some comments or questions on the intro, a little crazy, feel free to do that. If you didn't like it, which is fine, feel free to personally message me. And if you liked it, just say so. But I'm running for Congress. Vote for me in November. DeanArnoldForCongress.com. Give, share, subscribe, and like on this podcast. And today we are it's July 23rd, and I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. And one of the ways I'm going to bring sanity is to try to move away from the doom and gloom, despair and agony on me, everything is going to hell in a handbasket kind of mentality. That could be true. I don't tend to think so, and I'd like to think not. And I'm being rebellious by being positive. So there you go. Today's topic: will the world be destroyed by fire? There seems to be a general consensus among Christians, but also among non-Christians now, because it's our nihilistic age, but among Christians, that the world is going to be destroyed by fire. There are some biblical references that have made people think that. I'm not so sure. I may not be right, but I might be right. We are going to talk about it. Is the world going to be destroyed by fire? We'll look at the scriptural passages, and we will make some determinations. First, we're going to go into the calendar. And let me tell you, there's some heavy stuff on the calendar today. I don't know how much I'll get into it because it's just so frickin' controversial and difficult. But somebody's got to go there, and I'm the guy, I guess. Give it to Mikey. Let him do it. Okay. Scripture of the day. 1 Corinthians 10. First part of it, this passage, this whole thing about eating meat sacrificed to idols, should you do it or not? It's kind of a complex passage. You kind of got to know what was going on back in the day. But basically, people would sometimes, the pagans and stuff, before they cooked their meal, they'd offer the meat to the idols spiritually, and then they would take the meat back and cook it for dinner. And Paul basically says, look, if you're going over to someone's house, don't worry. Don't worry about that. He says, don't worry. It doesn't matter. If you're strong in Christ, strong, bear with the weak, don't worry about that. It just doesn't matter if it's been sacrificed to idols or not. However, if you sit down to eat and somebody at the table says, hey, did you know that this meat was sacrificed to idols? He said, in that case, don't eat it. Because somebody is kind of watching you and they're wondering if they should eat meat sacrificed to idols. And now it's become an issue. And he says, if that's the case, just don't eat it. Not because you can't, and not because it's actually a problem, but we just don't want to cause problems with other people and with the brethren and people who have a weak conscience and that kind of stuff. So that's what's going on. How does that relate to today? Some of you out there who are lurking with questions and comments, if you have a good example of what that would be like today, what examples do we have today of issues of conscience like that? The best one I can think of, I don't think it's the very best one, but it's drinking alcohol. Today it's not as big a deal, but when I was growing up, like most of Christianity believed drinking alcohol was sin, which is a terrible, stupid idea. It really hurt Christianity in many, many ways. But that was a deal. And so the strong, and I grew up in a family that was sort of strong on that issue, not until later. But by the time I was 18 or 19, I was quite certain that there was nothing wrong with drinking alcohol. drink alcohol. However, if you're in a situation where someone's looking at you, are you going to drink alcohol or not? And it's going to cause them to, be all freaked out and maybe drink alcohol themselves when they think they shouldn't. Just don't drink alcohol. The ability to drink alcohol or to smoke or whatever it is not as important as keeping your brother safe in terms of their conscience and having peace among the brethren. All right, that's enough of that. The second part of this passage, pretty intense. Verse 3 of chapter 11. But I want you to know that the head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Every man praying or prophesying having his head covered dishonors his head. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. For that is one and the same as if her head were shaved. For if a woman is not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it is shameful for a woman to be shorn or shaved, let her be covered. For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. Ha! Oh, help us, Lord. Okay, let's dig into this. So much to say here. Okay, somebody's got to bring sanity to an insane world. And Paul is laying it out here. These are the words of God himself, of Jesus Christ himself, bringing sanity to an insane world. We've lost the natural order of things. Okay? Men aren't supposed to beat their wives, and we're not supposed to have horrible monsters like in the Saint story yesterday where the father tried to have sex with his daughter. Obviously, all those horrible abuses are terrible and awful. We renounce all that terribleness. However, having said all that, there is a natural order of things. Men, then women, then children, then animals. It's pretty obvious. Men are at the top of the chain there. They are to love and honor and cherish women. But let's not pretend that men aren't taller, stronger, and equipped in every way to lead and protect. We've gotten away from that in the last 100 years, 200 years. And we've got into this egalitarian thing. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And we're seeing things spin out of control because of this insane worldview. We got to bring it back to reality. Paul's trying to bring it back to reality. I want you to know the head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. There it is. We hate it. We got to embrace it like medicine that stings because we need it badly, badly, badly in this really screwed up culture that we're in. Okay. This whole thing about covering the head, I am absolutely fascinated by it. And we could do like 3 podcasts on this, and maybe we will, but let me just talk a little bit more about the head covering thing. So traditional cultures, in many of them, the women cover their heads. There's an argument that this is only talk about in church and in liturgical situations. That may be true. But what I'm talking about is that traditional cultures, the women cover their head out of respect for the man. It communicates something. It communicates this natural order that I'm talking about, that if you get away from it, things go really south. And of course, we know that in traditional cultures, whether it's African or in Muslim cultures, indeed. China, not so much. Russia, not all the time, but it's there. Orthodox countries, Orthodox churches, traditional Orthodox churches, ROCOR. women cover their heads. And here's what I'm fascinated by. In France, ooh, filthy, disgusting France, which has some good points. I'll get to that. I almost did a podcast today on Italy, which is the most awesome country in the world. France thinks it is, but it's nothing near Italy. But anyway, I need to not expose my France issues. In France, they're having riots, not so much lately, but in the last 5 years, 10 years, people blowing up cars and riots in the streets and all sorts of terrible things because of head coverings. Whether a woman can cover her head or not. In France, they're not going to let you in a public building right now if you have your head covered because they are pissed. They don't, I guess I'm not supposed to say that word. They do not want that symbol of traditionalism, defying modernism, anywhere in their public sector. And of course, France is going to hell in a handbasket, and we'll probably see the fruits of all this eventually. I'm not a Muslim. I don't agree with Muslim culture in many ways. I do agree with them in many ways on the traditional side. They probably go too far. But the world has gone up into chaos over the issue of head coverings. But it's not really head coverings. It's the issue of the natural order of male and female. And you get that out of whack, and the world goes out of whack. And this is coming to a head. So it's fascinating. I've got a movie script in me I haven't written yet. It's called Submission, and it's like 4 different vignettes of this, that, and the other. It deals with head coverings and that sort of thing. I won't get into that today. But there you go. So much to say there. Anybody else got guts like me? Oh, we got a comment. I think I'll take it now. Best promotion on Streamboo. Oh, that's one of those body bots. All right, let's go back to the scriptures. Let's look at Matthew chapter 16. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this. Woo! Oh, we got a problem. Okay. Let's look at the verse 26. What profiteth a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? So everybody who is, for the last 100 or 200 years, has been defying the natural order and the biblical model because they want to go along and get along and make that money and be that person in society. What does it gain you what does it profit you if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul? Okay. Verse 28. Assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. All right. How do you explain this away? I'd like to know what the arguments are. Wildkeeper wants to know what kind of cigar I'm smoking, and it is an Oliva. I forget what kind of Oliva it is. It's one of the low level Olivas. I'll look it up. Thank you. Okay. Assuredly, I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So Jesus is talking to some people. Okay. He's talking to some people, some kind of crowd. And you got 80-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Some of them, assumedly the younger ones, will not taste death until they see, they're not going to die until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Does that mean the second coming came before they died? Apparently not. Then what could it possibly mean? Does that mean they were living when he died and resurrected? And that was the coming in his kingdom or the ascension. It could be, but probably almost everybody who he was talking to was alive at that point. So that doesn't quite work either. This gets back to the premise of the Revelation commentary that I edited, Revelation Explained, 3 volumes, that talks about how to deal with the book of Revelation, which is in near fulfillment and far fulfillment, double fulfillment of prophecy. The near fulfillment were the wild and crazy events of the first century, AD 70, the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. And the few Jews who lived were banished outside of Jerusalem into the netherworld. That was the end of the old world. That was the vindication of Jesus Christ, who was crucified by these people. Or at least they were the ringleaders, and technically the Romans did it. If you want to go there, fine. Jesus said the Jews were more responsible than the Romans. He said that specifically. But so if Jesus said this in AD 30, 40 years later, the people who were 20 were 60, the people who were 30 were 70. So a few of them were still around to see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom in the near fulfillment, which is the best way to interpret Revelation. There's a far fulfillment too for Revelation. We're just not anywhere near it, I don't think, which will dovetail into our topic of the day somewhat. But you tell me how else to interpret this verse. If you got a shot, give it to me. I don't think there's a better way to interpret it. All right, saint of the day. Apollonius, I think. Apollinaris, Bishop of Ravenna. This is a kind of a fun one. I need to bring it up. Sorry. Apollinaris, Bishop of Ravenna. Ravenna is Italy. It's kind of near Bologna, where I just went about a year ago. It's close to Florence. It's in between Rome and Milan, mid-Italy. But what's fun about this one is that he was a direct disciple of Peter. Peter made him a bishop and sent him to Ravenna in mid-Italy. You know, we're all Bible scholars because we have access to the Bible. But some of these saint stories are kind of fun because they deal with what happened right around the apostles and right after, which we don't know much about because we're not plugged into church tradition. But Apollinaris was a disciple of Peter. He was made bishop by Peter here in Italy. And he got sent to Ravenna. This soldier took him in because he needed a place to stay. And he healed this soldier's son who was blind. So this soldier named Irenaeus, he and his wife became the first Christians in Ravenna. And Apollinaris started doing liturgies in the home. If you think it was like a Protestant Bible study, no, it was a liturgy that they did in homes back then. Then his word got out, and the local governor, his wife got healed by Apollinaris, and the governor became a Christian, and the pagans got mad, and they started coming after him, and they wanted him dealt with, and they finally got him, and they tortured him. We know this story again and again. They tortured him so bad they thought he was dead. They took him to the seacoast and threw him in the water. However, he was still alive. And a certain pious Christian widow took him in for 6 months, nursed him back. He's out at it again, leading people to Christ, performing miracles. They don't like it again. They find him again. They torture him again. His bare feet were placed on red hot coals. They expelled him from the city a second time. But he stayed alive. Then he got exiled on a ship with 2 soldiers and a few of his disciples. The ship was headed to what's today we call the Balkans, Serbia, Croatia, all that. And on the way, the ship shipwrecked, and everybody drowned except Apollinaris, the 2 soldiers that were in charge of him, and his handful of followers that came with him. The 2 soldiers all became Christians. They all came back to Ravenna. Everybody in Ravenna was all excited to see Apollinaris again. He starts doing it again, preaching, bringing people to Christ, making Christians, healing people, doing miracles. The pagans came after him again. They brought him into the temple of Apollos, and as soon as he entered the temple, the idol of Apollo shattered. Apollo. So just, miracle after miracle. And I'll leave it at that. They eventually torture him and kill him. Not to be. Let's see. But he actually lived to a ripe old age. They tortured him to where he's barely alive. He's old, and he lived for 7 days. During his final illness, he told the flock, this is the part I want to remember, that he predicted that after the persecutions ended, Christians would enter upon better times. Now, I like that because we're going to talk about the future and where is it headed, and can we have a positive view of the future? And I think we can. But Apollinaros, direct disciple of Peter, he tells his followers as he's dying after he'd been persecuted and tortured several times, it's going to get better, guys. Hang in there. It's going to get better. Well, how many prophecies do you hear these days of it's going to get better? You just don't hear that prophecy very often. I mean, that could be because it's not going to get better. But I just wonder, because here's a prophecy where a godly saint who did miracles said, hang in there, guys. It's going to get better. And maybe it will. We just don't know. At least I don't know. And I don't think we should just say for sure it's going to get worse, because we don't know that either. Okay, let's get into the topic of the day, which is, will the world be destroyed by fire? It's kind of a consensus thing. It's kind of like, everybody thinks that we're right around at the end times. Jesus is going to come back real soon. We're in the final generation. It just seems to be an accepted view, and it's just not necessarily the case. But it is the default Christian view. And there's also a default Christian view that the world is going to be destroyed by fire. Is that true? Not necessarily, I think. It's another one of those where it may be true. And I'm not going to die on this hill, but it may not be true. I don't tend to think it is. Will there be some fires somewhere? Probably. It's going to be a great big fire that destroys the entire earth, and everybody's dead, and all the buildings are gone, and the Shroud of Turin and all the relics that we preserved, and the cave where Jesus rose again, it's all destroyed. I'm not so sure about that. Let's look at the verses that really one verse that causes us to believe that the earth is going to be destroyed by fire. 1 Peter 2:10. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be, I like that verse, that translation, will be discovered, laid bare. I think, but the elements will be destroyed with intense heat. Well, that kind of sounds like the world being destroyed by fire, but not necessarily. Let's look at another one. Let's look at, there's 3 other places that use this Greek term stoicheion, elements. Does it mean the elements of the earth, fire, wind, earth? I forget what the 4th one is. Well, let's look at where are we at? Well, let's look at Colossians. So Colossians uses the same word for elements. This is Colossians. Is it 2? Yeah, 2:8. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception in accordance with human tradition, in accordance with the elementary principles of the world, rather than accordance with Christ. So this elements thing is not elements as in earth, wind, fire, and whatever the earth itself. It's elementary principles. So what's going to be destroyed by fire is the godless principles and ideas and teachings. It says it again in verse 20. Let's read that. If you died with Christ to the elementary principles of the world, why do you submit yourself to bad stuff? Okay. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to give you one more, because another place it appears, that word appears in Galatians. That's not as interesting. It also appears in Hebrews, and that one's interesting. Let's look at that. Okay. Verse 12. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have again need for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the actual words of God. And you need milk, not solid food. So that when we're talking about burning up all the elements, we're talking about this false teaching and the false idea, elementary principles that are that are contrary to the actual words of God. So when Peter talks about the elements being burned up, it's very likely that that's what he's talking about. There's not consensus on this. John Chrysostom and Augustine both say that they think it's going to be a literal fire that just burns the whole world up. And St. Isaac the Syrian and St. Gregory of Nyssa, they say it's more of a metaphorical fire that burns up our souls, and kind of like gold being refined by fire. It's more of that kind of a thing. So there's not a consensus. But that's what I want you to understand here, guys, is that there's not a consensus, and you don't just have to assume that the world's going to be destroyed by fire. So why the hell worry about preserving anything or doing anything in terms of the future and civilization and that sort of thing, if it's all going to hell in a handbasket and it's all going to be destroyed by fire? Okay, one more verse I want to show you on this topic, because this is one of the reasons I don't tend to believe the world's going to be destroyed by fire. This is Genesis 9. You're all familiar with it. Noah has landed after the flood, and God makes a covenant with him, puts a rainbow in the sky and these things like that. And he says, verse 11, I'm going to establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. Well, this is God promising to mankind, to Noah, he's not going to destroy the earth again. But people interpret this, he's not going to do it by flood, but he's going to do it by fire. Ha ha ha. Well, maybe it never set well with me. I just don't think God is a trickster like that. I think he made a covenant with Noah that he's not going to destroy the world again. And I don't think he's got a little secret ace of spades behind his back where he pulls out and says, ha ha ha, but I'm going to destroy it by fire. I'm going to destroy the world again. Even though I promised you I really wouldn't. That's just my feeling. I could be wrong about this. I'm not going to die on this hill. But I don't think God is going to destroy the world again. I don't. Are there going to be some tough days? Is there going to be a day of reckoning? Does nuclear holocaust seem to dovetail with the idea of all the elements being destroyed by fire? It kind of does. So we may see some tough times, and there may be big fires in certain places, but I don't think the whole world is going to be destroyed by fire. I don't. I'm happy to be wrong. I don't think God is in the business of destroying the world again. I think after he destroyed the world by flood, he said he's not going to do it again. And instead, he sent his son, who has this really long-term plan of restoring and reviving the world and discipling all the nations until he comes back and brings his beautiful bride to himself. He's not in the mode of destroying everything with a great big huge fire. Maybe some refining fires here and there to get us all pure. Yeah, maybe some of that. We see that on an individual level and even certain communities time and time again. So yeah, that could be going on. We shall see. Any more comments and questions out there? I'm running for Congress. Vote for me. November. The August 6th election's coming up pretty soon. Write me in as a Republican. Dean Arnold. Just write me in there if you go vote in the Republican primary. I tried to run as a Republican. They charge $2,500 to run. I'm running as an independent instead. So just write me in. No harm done. Vote, give DeanArnoldForCongress.com. Comments or questions? Last chance. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. Yes. Move forward, live life, build civilization, follow Jesus Christ, disciple the nations, and don't live in fear like Chicken Little that everything is going to be destroyed by fire soon. So why do anything? I'm not into that. But I'm open. If you got suggestions how to temper that view, that's fine. Share, subscribe, like. Today is July 23rd. I think we've had a good session discussing an important issue, which is a recurring theme in this daily podcast, which is, what is your view of the future like? And if you think it's all going to hell, how can you live a solid Christian life? I think it's hard. I really do. All right. So I think we've done everything we need to do. I'm going to go out with my standard outro, and then we'll take it from there.